What's up, everybody? It's Coach Colton from Columbus Martial Arts. I hope you're having an amazing day so far today. Today, I want to do a little bit of a different style of video. This video is going to be a little bit longer, and the goal is to teach about our martial arts belt system, and not only our martial arts belt system, but also the history of belts as seen in martial arts media and in martial arts history. So hopefully this teaches you something. If you've learned something, go ahead and type a comment of what you've learned as you watch the video. And there's definitely something that sparked this video idea. I'll get to that a bit later. But first, let's talk about what a martial arts belt is, because that's something you see in media quite a lot. You see the student in the beginning of the movie with the white belt, and they're breaking the boards, and they're doing training and things, and they're earning their different belts from white, yellow, orange, all the way up to black. And there's some people that believe that's how martial arts has always been. You know, if you took a snapshot from 1,000 years ago, because martial arts is legitimately very old, tracing its origins back across Europe towards Asia, and the Olympic Games, they did wrestling and pancration and things like that. So there are many styles of fighting which are very old, but the belt colors didn't exist. And in fact, they are very, very recent. Judo developed their belt system in the 1930s. One of the first karate belt systems were recognized in the 1950s. It's really only the past 100 years or so that martial arts belt systems have really blown up and exploded. And we'll get to why that is in a moment. Some people also have these folklore ideas where, okay, you're training in this white uniform, and as you're doing the hard work and the grime, and you're getting dirty because you're training in, outside the elements, that your uniform is getting dingy and the belt's turning from white to brown, and ultimately, as you put so much time in, it turns black. That's really exaggerated. Of course, maybe a long time ago, they didn't have super great facilities to keep your stuff clean, but no one's walking around with a moldy, uniform that's turned dark from, the rain and mold. That's quite gross. They would have washed them, right? That's a little far-fetched. The reason that we train in the uniforms and in the belts, originally that's what they were wearing back then. The gi, the kimono, or different versions thereof was just the normal day-to-day clothes, right? So when we look at it, I have a couple slides here because I'm being fancy today. A long time ago, people in the societies were just wearing those things. They'd wear either a short or long sleeve jacket, a pair of pants, and it would be held together primarily with their belt. Their belts would hold their jackets closed, much like our belts today go through our belt loops and hold our pants up. It was just a functional piece of clothing. And the reason that they were trained, one, they have those pieces of clothing already, so they would just wear that. It makes sense. And then also, martial arts for self-defense, it really just epitomizes you should train how you're going to fight, and you should fight how you're going to train, and you kind of do what you've been trained to do. So by training in the clothing that you're going to wear, you'll be even more effective. And that can be seen in modern day too. There's many of academies that during the summertime adopt a summer uniform. You'll see their students wearing a t-shirt and a belt and pants, especially down here. Our academy is down in Georgia, so it gets really hot in the summertime. There's sometimes I wanted to adopt a summer uniform when the heat's really hitting heavy and stuff like that. But you'll see that. And when we teach our students in classes, we sometimes use the uniform and sometimes we don't. Of course, if you're fighting someone and you're protecting yourself against them and they're wearing heavy clothing like a jacket or a shirt that you can use to manipulate and use it to throw them or choke them, it's a very powerful tool. So the belt started just as a functional piece of the clothing, not really as this symbolic representation of the experience or the skill level of the student. And that's something that developed much later. And I believe a key reason that martial arts belt systems started to explode in the mid 1900s, is a little something called Karate Kid. Okay, the movies, not social media, martial arts media, anything from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, Karate Kid, Cobra Kai. There's so much media out there directed towards pop culture and youth in the 1900s that started to generate a lot of interest. Okay, at the bottom of the slide, you can see a graph, and there's a high point in June of 2010. And what happened in June of 2010? Well, that Jaden Smith Karate Kid movie came out. So you can see the trends as these really popular pieces of media come out, there starts to be a lot of people looking on Google and other search engines looking for martial arts classes for either for themselves or for their children. And before that, obviously they didn't have Google back in the 70s and stuff. I would pull that data too for the original Karate Kid, which I think was even a bigger boom than that 2010 Karate Kid. But anyways, when that happened, it got a lot of people training that weren't training before. And when you had that, you have to think about who was training, law enforcement, military, people that grew up with their families doing martial arts, people that maybe had a really tough experience, maybe a life or death situation where they really want to prepare themselves. You have a very small subset of the population training martial arts that hasn't varied very much. And now you have media bringing a lot of new people in, and you have the new people and the old people training together. And back then, it's a very rough and tumble environment. They probably didn't have age-specific classes. Many academies had the kids and the adults trained together. At best, their kids' class was probably 5 to 12 years old, and maybe 13 and up. They had a teen and adult class, and that was considered, revolutionary at the time. And now when you look at an academy like ours, we have so many different age groups because we know it has to be age appropriate to be effective. But when you get them in this environment, they've never trained before, they're sparring and they're getting their butt whooped every day by these people who've been training years and have, this lifelong wealth of experience, it can get very degrading and very defeative, and, morale is going to plummet. I watch Karate Kid, I go into train, and the people that know how to do it have been training forever and a day, just beating me up. I'm not learning anything. I'm not getting better, and I'm going to quit, right? And ultimately, there's this huge exodus, and every martial arts style, when it sees its moment in the sun, whether it's been judo, jiu-jitsu, kung fu, karate, taekwondo, when it gets that piece of media that really pushes it, like for Brazilian jiu-jitsu is definitely the UFC. When UFC and mixed martial arts got big, the transfer to jiu-jitsu exploded, right? When it has that, there's a big influx of students, and about 95% of those students don't stick with it and they quit. And the reason why is just because of poor systems and processes where the students don't feel like they're learning anything and they don't feel like they're reaching their goals. And that is why the belt system was created. Okay. The belt system was created as a tool to give students something legitimate that they could see, touch, feel, and really see their progress, because they're probably not going to right away see results trying to spar against that person that's been training for years and years, unless that the other person just lets them win, right? And generally they can tell when they've just been going against the wall and all of a sudden the wall gives way. It kind of shows them that it wasn't a legitimate victory. So students needed a tool to really see their progress, and a great way to do that was through different colored belts. As they covered coursework and material, or they achieved a certain milestone, the coach or the instructor, the sensei, whatever the title was for the instructor at that particular academy, would award them the next belt rank. But because this was a new thing, there's not really a system or a method for handing out the belts. Many different styles created their own systems. Many different styles created their own things that they were looking for. And maybe they based it on time. Maybe they had to take a test. Maybe you had to go in a tournament. Maybe you had to, pay a fee. How they did it was very different from style to style. And even within that same style from school to school could vary wildly, right? And we'll get into ours later on how we've developed our belt system and how our belt system works. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll see that our belt system is very particular. And the reason that I wanted to make this video is there's a comment made that kind of grinded my gears a little bit. I'm not sure if anything ever kind of ticks you guys off, but my primary martial arts background is in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu does not have the best belt system out there. Right. And I feel like I have the ability to say that. I've been training jiu-jitsu since 2007. I got my black belt in 2019. It took me 12 years to achieve it. It's something that I'm very proud of. It's probably one of the toughest things I've ever done, and one of the longest, journeys that I've ever had across the course of 12 years to earn it. But in quote unquote traditional, they love to use that word, the tradition of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is there's 5 belts, and that makes it sound like it's this really old thing. but it really hasn't been around since up until the 1950s, right? So it's not that old. But there's 5 belts for adults. It's white, blue, purple, brown, and black. And this is one of those things where it varies greatly from school to school. Maybe there's tests, maybe there's not. Maybe you have to do well at a tournament. Maybe you have to do well in live rolling. Maybe you just have to show up and be consistent in your training. Many different academies have different rule sets and different requirements for getting the belts. And even more recent than that, they've developed a kids belt system, because in jiu-jitsu, between white and blue belt, normally it's about 2 years. And to get the blue belt, students would have to be at least 16 years old. And obviously, if you have to be at least 16 years old to make that first benchmark for any youth training, that can be very discouraging. If you have an 8, 9, 10-year-old and you're saying, hey, you've got to wait till you're 16 to just get the very next belt, it's going to take them a very long time to reach that goal. And most of them aren't going to stick around for 8 months or 8 years or 6 years. And they're going to fizzle out and quit, having never achieved any goal that they can see and that they can feel over the course of that time. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu developed a kids belt system, and they use different colors. It's like white, yellow, gray. I think I have a slide that I'll pull up in a moment. But for kids, they can't earn their black belt. And I was talking to this parent, and they said that we're giving out fake belts at our academy because we here at Columbus Martial Arts do have a junior black belt for our youth. And the reason we have our black belt is because everyone knows how big of a crowning achievement a black belt is. Even if you've never trained, I bet you know that black belt is one of the top belts. I bet you know that black belt is one of the top dogs that know their stuff and have a certain level of skill. So in that pop culture and just in that martial arts media sphere, the black belt has that legitimacy to it. It has that weight to it that really makes it a desirable goal. Students want to earn their black belt. I have students that say, I want to be a black belt before they'd even stepped on the mat for their first class. That's a very powerful thing. And the goals at our academy, the objectives with our program are very simple. We have 3 objectives. Doesn't matter what program you're in, from our early skills program, 3 and 4-year-olds, all the way up to our leadership, which is students, 12 to 14 years old. The 3 goals: we want to get kids out of the house, get them physically active and interacting with other kids their same age. We want to teach them how to defend themselves using different martial arts maneuvers, so that if they're getting bullied at school, if there's a strange or dangerous situation, they're able to protect themselves. And we want to use martial arts as a vehicle to teach leadership skills and develop good character in our youth. So teaching things like confidence, focus, respect, many core values that families want, and many core values that you think about when you think of tough martial arts training, because martial arts takes a certain level of perseverance and determination and different skills and things like that. And they told, the parent I was talking to told me that we were giving out fake belts because in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they don't hand out black belt to youth, right? And he was saying that we're giving out participation trophies and that our students really didn't deserve it. And I think from his perspective, he thought there was some long line of precedent that you weren't supposed to give youth black belts. But that is entirely false. There is no long precedent. The belt systems for many styles have been developed over the course of the last 100 years. And what is a black belt really? Black belt is a baseline mastery of whatever your course material is. And if you watch the 5 red flag video I did a week or 2 ago, talking about the 5 red flags that you need to look out for at most martial arts academies, one of the red flags was a lack of curriculum, right? And if your school doesn't have a curriculum, how can you award any kind of a black belt when you don't know what the black belt is supposed to entail and supposed to cover? So if we look at the jiu-jitsu kids belt system, for example, which was this parent was referencing, you can see a couple things here on this slide. You can see the different belts for kids. You can see that there's a minimum age requirement to reach the belt. And they talk about that a bit there. And then they have recommendations on how to award the students their stripes and their belts. And they had 3 different recommendations. You could do it monthly, you could do it triannually, or you could do it quarterly. Nowhere does it talk about they have to master certain skills. They have to know these things. They have to have a baseline level of fitness or level of health. It simply says to award them these things as they show up. So for this parent that was wanting this really hardline, tough training, I don't think that they realized that really what they were referencing was a participation trophy style of model, right? Which seemed to be the very thing that they were against when they're talking about fake belts. So you're giving out fake belts. You can't give out black belts to kids. A kid can't be a black belt. You're just giving them, participation trophies. And then when you go and look at the material, it's giving the stripes and the belts just for showing up for a month or for 2 months or for 3 months. And that's not how we do it here. We have tests and challenges for every single thing because we're trying to teach our youth about working hard and goal setting and achieving your goals. And that's what makes reaching the stripes and the goals so powerful, is when they've worked hard and they pass their test and they have that level of achievement and they receive the belt. It feels so great. They feel so proud of themselves when they've mastered that new skill. If I just give it to them for showing up, it doesn't have that effectiveness. It'll be cool for a second, but it's kind of getting a Happy Meal toy, right? In a kid's meal. They look at it, they play with it. Oh, this is cool. And what happens to it? It goes in the bin, broken, never to be seen again, right? And I've been there. I've trained at academies where the coaches just give stripes to students that they think have been coming for a while. I've been at academies where they've handed out belts with students taking no kind of test, and it's just based on their feeling as the instructor. And I never want that. And I never want you guys to have to go through that if you're looking for a martial arts academy, because that introduces bias. Everyone has their favorite students and students they don't like. Everyone has, just human error. There should be a system and process and expectations for every single achievement, from white belt all the way to black belt. And that's why we use the belt system. It is not some old school thing. It is a modern tool for engaging youth to a whole new level. Because the youth today at home on the iPad and even at school, they're using things like Classroom Dojo and all of these different things, because we're seeing more students that are ADHD, right? Whatever that means nowadays, or ADD, hyperactive. What we do know, whatever you label them as, is that we have to engage our youth more quickly and effectively. And one of the best ways to engage our youth is through positive reinforcement. So if I can teach a student how to live a healthy lifestyle, how to defend themselves, how to be a leader, and all I have to do, or one of the main things I have to do, is create a positive reinforcement structure for them to achieve those goals, then I'm definitely going to do it. And we're doing that through our belt system. They have a short-term goal at every class to earn their stripe, a midterm goal every 10 weeks to test for their next belt, and a long-term goal to reach their black belt. And they're all tests. Nowhere do I guarantee the student will always pass their test. Nowhere do I guarantee that if a student shows up for 10 weeks, they're going to get their next belt. Every test, we have about 20%, it's usually between 15 and 20% of our students fail the belt test, all right? And we watch that number very closely. If it's too high, maybe that something went wrong with the test and it was too tough, it was too low. Why is the testing too easy? It should be a challenge. And you're going to have some students fail. And that's really when that coaching and parenting really starts. And we have to teach them, those other lessons about perseverance and not giving up. So we saw the IFBJJ one where it was based on showing up. Let's take a look really quick over at our belt system and how I have it structured. We have the early skills, basic skills, core, and extreme. So these are 4 different age groups. Earlies are 3 and 4, basics are 5 and 6, cores are 7 and 9, and extremes are 10 to 14. If our black belt was on there, it'd be right after that half red, half black belt under the extreme skills banner. Over on the right-hand side, I'm not sure if you can read this very well, but this is a direct pull from our belt testing and our stripe testing manual. This is for our basic core belt. So this is for all of our beginner 7 to 9-year-olds. So I kind of picked one in dead center, but you can see what belt color they currently have at the top. You can see what word it is, what challenge, what stripe we're doing on the left-hand side. And in the cell, you can see what they have to do and what we take off points for. Every student starts with 5 points. As they do things wrong, they lose a certain number of points based on what they did wrong. So it doesn't matter who the student is. It doesn't matter who the coach is. We can have a reliable measuring method for every single thing that we do. And this is not something that was etched in some tablet in ancient China or in ancient Korea or ancient Japan. Again, the belt testing is a modern tool One of the first karate systems developed their belt, I believe it was in 1956. Okay, not that long ago. So if anyone tries to tell you like, oh, that's not traditional or this, that, and the other, they probably don't know what they're talking about. I actually saw a martial arts catalog the other day. It was like a thing we got in the mail. I was trying to sell us gear. And under traditional martial arts, it had Jeet Kune Do, which if you don't know, Jeet Kune Do was what Bruce Lee came up with in 1970s, right? I don't know if 1970s is old enough to be considered traditional martial arts, but many things that get pushed through social media and pop culture and martial arts media might not necessarily be true. Big shocker there. But just a little tidbit on how our belt system works and why I believe in our belt system so fully is because we've designed a very particular system to help us with those three goals. And to that family that parent that told me we're giving out fake black belts, just to give you an idea about what our black belts go through. Our black belt test is, 10 times harder than all of our other belt tests. They have to do a technical test. There's 36 techniques they have to master. They have a physical test. They have to do various different workouts. And that's on the same day as a technical test. So they're going in and doing those 36 techniques after they're dog tired from running and push-ups and burpees and all that kind of stuff. They have to write an essay. They have to do class assistance. So they have to come in and help out with classes to build their communication skills and their public speaking skills. They have to perform random acts of kindness to help their community, because that's a big part, we believe, of being a leader and being a black belt. And they have to turn their essay into a speech and deliver that speech at their promotion ceremony as kind of the cherry on top of the black belt testing Sunday that we give to our students. And the reason I believe so powerfully in our system and so thoroughly in our system is I know the systems and processes are on point so that by the time they reach black belt, they would have made significant progress in our three goals, which again, were to get out of the house, lead a healthy and active lifestyle, engaging with other kids their same age, the ability to defend themselves if they were ever attacked at school or in a stranger danger situation, and also the ability to be a leader and develop those leadership skills like perseverance and confidence, focus, respect, those things you think about when you think of tough training. So I very much believe we are giving out real black belts. I believe a high level of legitimacy in our belt program because the systems and processes are there. And if you have watched that red flag video that I did already, went over the 5 red flags, hopefully this made a little bit more sense to you. I kind of made this as a tie-in to that other video. If you haven't watched it, it's up on our Facebook page. I encourage you to go check it out. But if you didn't know this, type in the chat #belts. Tell me something you didn't know about the belting system. Turns out the belts weren't around for thousands and thousands of years. It is something that we've developed to help engage new students and help them stay encouraged and see their goals, even though they may be struggling getting to class, their muscles may be sore, they may be losing their sparring sessions. We have a tool where they can see, hey, the coach has acknowledged my skills are growing and I have achieved our belts because now I can do X, Y, and Z, these particular movements, and I understand these particular concepts, and I'm becoming a black belt. I'm getting my degree in this coursework, which goes over those different goals I mentioned before. As always, I hope you're having a great day at home. I can't wait to see you guys on the mat soon. Thank you guys for hanging in and watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.